You ever wonder what happens when a country basically stops making things and just decides to sell houses to each other for more and more money? Well, you don't have to wonder, because we're living it. A single asset class, real estate, has become this kind of financial black hole, and it's distorting and, frankly, devouring the entire Canadian economy. To really get how deep this problem goes, you have to look at what your money actually buys.
Okay, just to grasp how completely absurd this situation is, think about this. For $1.5 million, you could own a literal 12-bedroom castle in France. Or you could get a semi-detached fixer-upper in Toronto that probably needs a complete gut job. This isn't just a quirky market thing. It's a giant flashing red light that the entire system is deeply, deeply dysfunctional. And today, we're going to break down exactly how we got here.
All right, so our first major problem is what you could call the Great Capital Suck. It's the story of how all this money that should be funding innovation, creating jobs, and building a productive economy got rerouted into one single unproductive asset.
To really get this, let me tell you a little story. Let's call our guy Kevin. He's a brilliant entrepreneur. He's got an AI startup idea that could totally change the logistics industry. So he walks into a bank, gives the pitch of his life, asks for a business loan, and what does the bank say? Too risky. Business is tough. Sorry, Kevin, no dice.
But then Kevin walks back in with a totally different pitch. He says, actually, I want to buy a 40-year-old condo with some questionable plumbing. And suddenly, the banker's eyes light up. $1 million? No problem. Here you go. This little story just perfectly captures the core issue. Our entire financial system has decided that speculating on old boxes in the sky is a safer bet than investing in the country's actual future.
And look, this isn't just a made-up story. The hard data backs this up completely. In late 2023, the money poured into just building and renovating houses was nearly double the investment in all business machinery and equipment combined. Think about that. We are spending vastly more on our bedrooms than on the actual businesses that let us afford them in the first place.
And that leads to this quote, which is brutal, but 100% accurate. You don't create real wealth by just inflating the value of things that already exist. You're just moving money around. When a house doubles in price, it doesn't get twice as good at being a house. It just sucks twice as much capital out of every other productive part of the economy.
So this constant fire hose of money into housing didn't just starve the productive economy, it created a really dangerous side effect, a national addiction to debt. We all started to mistake these crazy rising house prices for actual wealth, and then we borrowed against that illusion to pay for our lifestyles.
And the main tool that made this all possible was the home equity line of credit, the HELOC. Banks went to homeowners and said, hey, guess what? Your house is worth hundreds of thousands more than you paid for it. Why not tap into that equity? It felt like free money, and boy, did Canadians use it. For new trucks, kitchen renos, and even for down payments on more investment properties.
The result was just staggering. At the peak of this whole thing, Canada became one of the most indebted nations on the planet. For every single dollar of take-home pay, the average household owed $1.85. We actually beat the Americans' debt levels from right before their 2008 crash, and that's a contest you never, ever want to win.
Now, all that debt became a massive, massive problem when interest rates started to climb, and it led to a situation that sounds completely impossible. What if I told you that hundreds of thousands of Canadians were dutifully making their mortgage payments every single month, only to find out their total debt was actually going up?
It's a real thing. It's called negative amortization. See, when rates spiked, a lot of variable rate mortgage payments weren't even enough to cover the interest that was due. So what do the banks do? They just tacked that unpaid interest back onto the principal. It's basically a zombie mortgage, and it's designed to keep the illusion going and prevent a wave of defaults, even as the homeowner is literally sinking deeper and deeper into debt.
So you might be asking yourself, why hasn't this all just collapsed? Well, there are two huge forces that have been artificially propping up this market: a massive surge in population without the infrastructure to support it, and government policies that are basically designed to prevent any kind of market correction, no matter what the long-term cost is.
To get the growth part of the story, let's talk about the pizza party deception. See, politicians love to boast about rising GDP, but that's like saying the total amount of pizza at the party went up. Who cares? What matters is how big your slice is. Canada's been adding a ton of people, but our economic pie isn't growing nearly fast enough. So while the total economy gets bigger on paper, the average person's share, their actual standard of living, is shrinking. And the numbers are just jaw-dropping. In 2023 alone, the population grew by 1.2 million people. That's like dropping the entire population of Estonia into the country in just 12 months, all of them competing for the same insufficient housing stock. It just pours gasoline on the fire, driving rents and prices through the roof.
The other thing propping this all up is government policy, which has created this huge moral hazard. You have institutions like the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation that insure mortgages. Now, this insurance protects the bank, not you. So if a homeowner defaults, the taxpayer makes the bank whole again. This basically encourages banks to hand out incredibly risky loans because they know they're protected from any of the consequences. It's a classic case of heads they win, tails you lose.
So here's the most important part. This isn't just an economic problem anymore. It has fundamentally fractured Canadian society. That old deal, work hard, buy a house, retire comfortably, it's dead. And in its place, we've basically created a new feudal system.
This has created two completely separate Canadas. On one side, you have the landed gentry, people who bought property before this all went crazy. Their wealth grows passively while they sleep. On the other side, you have the serfs, young people, newcomers, who are spending over half their income on rent. They are effectively just transferring their wealth to Class A, with zero hope of ever owning property themselves. The latter has been officially pulled up.
And this economic reality is having these profound, deeply personal consequences. When you can't afford a home, you put off major life decisions. In 2023, Canada's fertility rate hit an all-time low. We are literally failing to reproduce as a nation because the cost of just having a roof over your head is too damn high.
And what happens when your brightest and most ambitious people look around and see no future for themselves? Well, they leave. Just look at this choice for a top software engineering grad. Stay in Toronto for a lower salary, crippling rent, and a declining quality of life, or move to Austin, earn more than double, and actually afford a home and a life. It's not a choice. It's a no-brainer. We are literally educating our best talent just to gift them to the American economy.
So where does this road lead? We're holding a tiger by the tail, and we are absolutely terrified to let go. Economists really only see two primary endgames for this whole situation, and, spoiler alert, neither of them is a happy ending.
Path number one is the big crash. A sudden, violent 2008-style correction where prices just plummet, say 30 to 50%. The good news? Housing suddenly becomes affordable. The bad news? Our banking system, which is massively over-leveraged to real estate, could very well fail. That means mass unemployment, economic chaos. This is the scenario that the government is trying to avoid at all costs. Which leads us to the second, and frankly, far more likely scenario: Japanification. This is a slow, grinding decline. Instead of a crash, we just get decades of stagnation. Prices stay high on paper, but inflation just eats away at our purchasing power. Wages go nowhere, innovation dies. We become a high-cost, low-growth economic museum. Basically, we avoid the sudden heart attack, but we choose to live with a chronic, debilitating disease instead. And that leaves us with one final sobering question. In our desperate attempt to protect the paper wealth of existing homeowners and to prevent a market crash, are we sacrificing the prosperity, the dynamism, and the hope of an entire generation? It's a trade-off that we are making every single day, and the bill is coming due.